Good evening. Welcome to the December 11th Planning Commission meeting in Ascension Parish Courthouse. I'd let the record show that Commissioner Wade, Shake Snyder, and Max are absent. The rest of us are here. With that, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Introduction, staff. Eric, you want to start?
Eric Poche, Director of Planning and Development.
Sean Thoreau, Engineer and Reviewing Agency.
Lance Brock, zoning official.
Stacy Webb, Recording Secretary for the Planning Commission.
Jerry is Carey, Information Technology.
Spencer Long, Parish Attorney.
Thank you very much. Chairman has no comments. Next item is any public comments on any agenda item. If it's an agenda item, if you could please fill out a red card or a green card and give it to the secretary. So speak if you have a comment on something that's not on the agenda. This is your 3 minutes. All right, nobody steps up. We'll move on. Staff report, subdivision report. Eric?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in front of you normal monthly subdivision report with any changes noted. The only DeLawn Estates is on the agenda for this evening for their final plat. We are currently in review of the Magnolia Ridge, the Ascension Commerce Center first filing. And other than that, everything else is either in construction or nearing completion. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from any commissioner? Hearing none. Next item is the minutes from our prior meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion. We have a motion to approve and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. The next item is the consent agenda. Item 10A, affidavit of mortgage declaration, John C. Gotro, unnamed 11.55 acre lot and a 59.59 acre lot, 47171 and 47217 Highway 22, Santamont, Louisiana. Do I have any motion?
Somebody's going to present?
No, this is on the consent agenda. We're on the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye. The entire consent?
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
The entire consent is
Oh. Yeah, let me read them all. I'm sorry. Yeah, let me do that. Let me read all of them. Okay. The next one is affidavit of mortgage declaration, Lynn Levi Land Company LLC, DeLawn Estates, second filing, Highway 73, Perryville, Louisiana. And the final approval, DeLawn Estates, second filing, Quality Engineering and Surveying LLC, Council District 4. All three items on the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion? We have a motion to approve. Second? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Okay, now we have the public hearing, Gateway Farms. Someone here to speak on behalf of Gateway Farms?
Corey Blanchard with Quality Engineering, requesting approval. Here to answer any questions.
Why don't you, for the benefit of staff, give us a little bit about the project?
It's a single-family development. We've completed a drainage study, traffic impact study.
Okay. right, and commissioners have any questions of the applicant? Well, we'll get to that in a minute. I just want to give us an opportunity, anybody from, okay. All right, we'll open it up to the public hearing. Stacy, do we have anybody?
Yes. Katrina. Yes.
Okay, just to be clear, you have 3 minutes to speak. Okay.
Hi, I'm Katrina Bonamolo. I live on El Landry Road. I was and am hoping with the new administration that you learned something from the last one. We do not want any more development in our area that the infrastructure cannot support. I'm speaking of traffic and drainage. I had to go from Dutchtown Pharmacy tonight to El Landry, which is a mile. There was no way that I could possibly turn left out of the pharmacy, so I went to the side on Highway 74 to make a left turn. There was no possible way that I could turn so that I could get into the lane to go straight to El Landry Road. The traffic was backed up way past the Dollar General store on Highway 74. I was able to make a left turn on 73, and it took me 30 minutes to get home. More traffic in this area is not feasible, nor is more building with the flooding issues in the area where Fauché Road is. Please make educated, informed decisions for the citizens in this parish and quit putting us in harm's way with more traffic and flooding issues. If this passes and a subdivision is built, people that have never flooded will, and it's getting too close to home for me. Remember, you're here because the citizens were tired of the past shenanigans. Please don't repeat them.
Thank you. Stacy, anybody else?
Michael Alonso.
It's been a while for me for speaking in public, so please bear with me, okay? Hi, my name's Mike Alonso, and my family permanently relocated here from Huntsville in 1999. We bought the house at 12418 Fauché Road, Gonzales, in July of the same year. The first 4 or 5 years, traffic and flooding was a nuisance. It was easily manageable, but now it is passed out of control. During the time we've owned the home, we've had our central AC units go completely underwater. They're on 3-foot platforms now. Vehicles have flooded. Outdoor raised buildings have flooded. Thousands of dollars of outdoor equipment has been lost to flooding. The home itself would have been flooded numerous times over the years if it weren't on 3+ foot tiers. The flooding problem is so bad, the home next door had a levee and pumping system installed just to try to keep the water at bay. The house there still flooded. This was back around 7 or 8 years ago when the flooding around the New River Canal / Fauché Road area was already bad enough. Now, another planned subdivision only proves to intensify that. Traffic, that's another problem that's compounded over the years. When we first bought the house, it was already dangerous enough. Just try turning left off of Fauché onto 74. That was in the early 2000s. The impact that this plat would have on the flooding and traffic as we know it, well, it would turn one street being a cut-through just to avoid Highway 73 traffic, El Landry Road, and another having the only way out onto the highway for 90 more residents on Fauché Road. This committee has before it a proposed plat and supporting data requesting an approval to build a 77-house subdivision on Fauché, a subdivision that will directly impact both the flooding and traffic problems in the area. As things stand now, the development would certainly cause an increase in the flooding problems and adversely affect our roads, causing even more dangerous situations. I'd also like to point out that the traffic impact sample provided in the packet shows a 4-lane road with a center turn lane. Please note that Highway 74 is still a two-lane road, not four lanes, and it does not have a center turn lane. My family's not against development, but if you stop developing, when you stop developing, the community dies. But to grow, we have to grow responsibly. It's this committee's responsibility to protect parish residents. It's not about people that would buy those new homes. It's about people that are here now.
All right.
Current Ascension Parish residents and their quality of life, safety, and the protection of their property should be prioritized.
3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Sonia Casjohn.
It's going to speak from my heart. I live along the bayou that backs up to the new proposed subdivision. Every time there's a good little bit of rain, that bayou backs up. It has nowhere to go. It comes up on my property. I can't tell you the countless times that we've come so close from it coming in. The insurance is already out the box. It's unaffordable. Everything that these people have said about the traffic is true. I can't tell you how many times our mailboxes have been taken out. People have died countless times. I can't count them. Pretty much everything they've said is the issue. There's nowhere for the water to go. Where's it gonna go? We're gonna add 71 more homes. That's 140 more cars coming out. We can't get out now. It's like, hold your breath, I'm coming, baby, to get out, as it is. I mean, I don't know how this will work. When my children were still in high school, this is 10 years ago, but if I left my home after 7:15, it took 40 minutes to get to the front doors of Dutchtown High. That's less than 2 miles. That was 10 years ago. I don't even want to think what it would be right now. It's a danger to be, I'm going to say this first off. We're in the construction business. I love to see growth. That's business. We need the business. But I need a home, a place that's safe and it's dry. And that's pretty much all I have to say about it.
No, thank you very much. Anybody else? That's it? Okay.
Still a public comment,
We're still in public comment, okay. All right, we're gonna close public comment. Commissioners, go ahead.
I do have a question about the mitigations for upstream and downstream when we start adding those hard surfaces.
Okay,
Well, I
let
didn't see
me,
anything specific, it just says they were addressed, but I don't know exactly how they were addressed.
okay, well, we have Sean Sherrod, CSRS, the engineer review agency is here. We have engineers for the developer. We also have the engineer that assisted in conducting the traffic impact study. Traffic impact study was done on this project. We also did an off-site drainage analysis that was recently passed through the council back in the summertime. So all of the questions can be directed to Mr. Sherrod, and he can direct them to whoever, but we can answer just about any question you have. I just wanted to go over all of that. So any questions that you have, just let us know. Shoot, fire away.
Well, I'm not sure exactly what the questions are to ask, except that if the land existing as it is, which is green space right now, is having a hard time absorbing the excess runoff, what is adding the hard space is gonna do to it? What have you put in place? Where are you directing it? And how are you gonna protect those people around it?
Okay. Once again, our role, we work for the parish to review the designer's drainage studies. Want to make sure, this is, it's been a while since the new subdivisions came here. It's a new time with the planning commission. So just a reminder, our role as the ERA is to review the required drainage studies to make sure it meets the parish's ordinance. And so I'll be able to communicate what was in the study, but if there was design considerations, all the things that were not included in the study, we may have to direct it to the design engineer. But for this particular project, and what the ordinance requires in the parish, that if you have green, and you start adding parking lots, pavement, all those hard surfaces, you have to mitigate it. And according to our ordinance, the ways that you mitigate it is what you can see here. They have a detention pond. I see at least one, proposed pond 1. located on this plat. They got 2 ponds, and those ponds, their roles is to gather the water from the site, send it to the detention ponds. Also, a part of their way of mitigating it, they left that Lot C3. It's a big, wide-open spot that they are preserving not to build anything. Keep it low, keep it as grass to allow water to be interconnected between the 2 bayous. So their layout and the detention ponds are their mechanisms for, just as just to offset the additional water that comes from hard surfaces. I can answer.
So essentially, by complying to the ordinance, the net discharge from the post-development property should be more or less equal to what it is today.
Actually, our ordinance is more restricted than that. It requires you run a 50-year event and make it to be 90% of a much more frequent event of a 10-year event. So they are required to over-detain than what the site is producing right now. That's per the parish's ordinance.
50-year post down to the.
50-year post to
10-year
90% of a
minus
10-year,
10%.
or you can say 50-year to a 10% reduction
Correct.
of a 10-year. A lot of places just match 10 to 10, 25, 25. The parish has a.
Just for the
over
benefit of the public,
detention.
I wanted you to bring that up.
No,
That's-
that's
okay.
good.
Sean, can I add into that? Kyle Hagler with SGB Group. I did the drainage study. I just wanted to clarify. So Sean's right. We did follow the ordinance of the 50-year reduced to 90% of the 10. That effectively comes out to about a 50% reduction in a 50-year storm. So the detention basins on site are reducing the flow to the outfalls by code, and then we are also providing, it's about 50,000 cubic yards of additional storage in the flood zone separately also. So we're increasing the storage volume available for a flood event and reducing the peak runoff from the site. So we're improving on both sides of that.
Does that satisfy your question? Okay, any other questions from anybody else? Okay, go ahead.
So as far as traffic is, I know, I mean, it's the way El Landry, Fauché said, everybody trying to turn left out from El Landry or to, and then what, is there anything to be done with the existing part of Fauché Road? That, I mean, is that road able to handle
Yeah, I'll be.
more traffic?
If you don't mind me
Yeah.
comment on that. One thing that's, I don't know if it's in this report or not, but per the ordinance, no development shall happen on a road that's less than 20 feet wide. And then based on this road, it meets that criteria less than 20 feet wide. So just want to point that out now, because probably sort of answering your question, that should we get to the point where you should want to consider approving this project, you have to remember that it's conditioned upon that road getting to a point that it's no less than 20 foot. So I'll just, since you brought the topic, I'll make sure you remember that, should we ever get to that point.
And we have, and as the commission.
And it's
we have-
happened in the past, with some projects, some people widened Germany Road. We might remember in the past, one of the subdivisions, when they had that same criteria, so there's precedence for that. Now, the traffic part, you're right, you'll see in the summary of the table, this, remember when they said the traffic study was done, this is part of the parish's new ordinance. This is the parish's hired traffic consultants, not the developers, traffic consultants that did this. The parish has traffic engineers in-house to review and work with the traffic consultant. So some of their conclusions, they very clearly state in here that traffic does back up. Everyone's familiar with it, going to El Landry Road eastbound, it stacks up in front of Fauché Road. It acknowledges that, it states that it backs them to it. It's, one of the statements in our conclusion on page 4, I'm summarizing it. Based on field observations, the Highway 74 eastbound approach, is what we're talking about here at El Landry Road, cues past Fauché Road as a result of left turners blocking the through lane while waiting for gaps to turn onto El Landry, what was mentioned earlier. This presents operational and safety concerns for future conditions with the addition of the development trips on the road. So the statement that you made was making it clear. It's also noted in this comment letter. It's on page 4 in the conclusion section, of this letter. So it's acknowledging that, and it's mentioning that as part of your all's consideration when you're evaluating this project. The reference earlier for one of the constituents that came and noted that this traffic summary suggested that Highway 74 was more than 2 lanes. That's really part of the section, we do the what if. The road is below acceptable level of service. We're not saying the applicant has to do it, it's existing. What would you have to do to make it better? And so they just said you would have to add lane in each direction and add a through lane of all of 74 to make this what the parish would consider acceptable.
And then obviously DOTD.
It would have to be DOTD, and they would have to prove that concept, and then this is still being a left turn situation. So this is all new to us. It's been a long time since we've had a subdivision. I'll be able to work with y'all to work through these questions. So I'm just trying to take my time to get a little more thorough than I may have done in the past. I'm trying to answer some of these questions.
What's the right-of-way on Highway 74 look like?
Pardon me?
How wide is the right-of-way for 74?
I want to say it's between 70 and 80 feet, if I remember correctly.
Yes. 80. It's probably 80 feet.
About 80 feet?
Mm-hmm.
So conceivably, those two issues could be addressed with a condition of approval requiring that the existing portion of Fauché Road be widened to a minimum of 20 feet of pavement in compliance with the ordinance. Shouldn't be a condition, it's a requirement of the ordinance, but we'll condition anyway. And then the other one would be that a left turn lane, be built on that meets the standards, it meets, parish and state standards on Highway 74.
Yes, sir. If Sean doesn't mind, if you guys don't mind, we have Miss Rebecca Murray, who's with Gresham Smith, that actually did the traffic study. If you have some detailed situations or questions that you would like to ask her, that she can answer, and she could probably explain it in greater detail, as they're the ones that actually did the traffic study.
Well, I'd like for her to come up here and address the intersection, and tell us what, if anything, she recommends to alleviate the delays caused by left turns.
Okay.
Sure, yes. As was said previously, there is.
Name.
Oh, Rebecca Murray, Gresham Smith, traffic engineer. As was previously stated, there is some existing issues out there we saw in the field. Specifically in the PM peak, people taking eastbound lefts onto El Landry, backs in front of Fauché Road. So with that, you'll see, we have some tables in here with high delays for the side streets, especially Fauché Road. The traffic analysis shows with the development in the PM peak, we're adding 80 trips. And what we analyzed was to alleviate some of that or mitigate some of the delay was a two-way left turn lane. Due to the proximity of Fauché Road to El Landry, you really can't fit in a full left turn lane without reducing some access for other development or other roadways. So we looked at a two-way left turn lane, but that also presents some operational and safety issues just with different opposite movements, but that would help with capacity.
And that's one of my concerns.
Wait, I'm confused.
Yes.
So the left turn lane is a good idea or a
A
bad idea?
single left turn lane to get the people that are taking an eastbound left onto El Landry, if we break that out into a left turn lane, that would alleviate some of the traffic. But then you wouldn't have a left onto Fauché Road.
Right.
So we're proposing a two-way left turn lane, not an exclusive lane at either one.
Okay.
And that's my concern, is that El Landry and Fauché, is the way it's sitting opposing each other, it does create a
It's very
dilemma there
close.
of trying to figure out something.
But a two-way left lane, considerably, we just need probably some piping for the drainage in order to be able to leverage the entire right-of-way to do that. Because now you have 4 lanes in a portion of the road.
It would be a single through lane in each direction and a two-way
okay.
left turn lane in the middle. So
Okay.
the cross-section would be 3
There's 3
lanes.
sections. Oh, okay. All right. In other words, a suicide lane.
Yes, we already have that.
What is the length of the, Sean mentioned earlier, he's saying, nearly a through lane, the entire length of 74 would be needed. What would that length be?
Well, we analyzed the two-way left turn lane from pretty much the overpass 74 all the way to Chester Diaz, because Chester Diaz was also included in our study, and there were existing operational issues there too. But that allows people to make a two-stage left turn movement off of the side street. So instead of having to make your whole left turn in one movement, you can turn out, wait until there's a gap, and merge in.
But that's a considerable distance, is it not?
Yes, but yes, so you wouldn't have to do that for this whole development, but that would improve some of the existing issues that we saw.
Okay,
need a third
if you
lane
were
from
gonna do
Chester
it, if
Diaz
you were
to
gonna
the
do it for
overpass.
this development, how much would you do?
Say that again?
If you were gonna do it for this development, how much of that would you do?
In front of Fauché Road, that meets DOTD guidelines for necessary storage.
Okay. All right. Okay, Nick, you got
Has
anything?
DOTD been involved with any roadway modifications for this particular plan?
But
No.
it's typically uncommon to talk to DOT this early. Most of them are, and they're going through a new access management process anyway with administration.
Correct.
Typically want to make sure that first, they want to talk about what ifs, do you actually have a project? And then proceed forward to talk about what these options are. But they would require a full study. They don't consider one development. They can consider how does it impact El Landry, how's it impact this, does it impact Chester Diaz, coming over the overpass, that they look at it globally, and they can say, no, we appreciate your help in El Landry, turning movements, but it may not improve the situation for this particular application. So remember, the traffic impact policy of Ascension Parish has two things we're looking at. One, what does this development cause relative to the existing network? Like, what burden are you adding?
Right.
The second piece of the traffic study is, regardless, what is the existing network now? And sometimes, like we see the 73s and 74s and others, it's just a level of service is already low. You had nothing to do with it. You're just going up to, it's already below the acceptable level of service. And then we ask the consultants, okay, what would you have to do? For example, 73 in Dutchtown, they'll say 4 lanes, right? But you don't, so you have to consider, like, do you add that, make it 4 lanes? 74 is at that point where it would need to, capacity-wise, even before this development came up, would need additional lanes. Similar, the conversion from a 2-lane to the 2-lane, we call it the
center
suicide lane, or adding turn-in movements. It's at that stage, it needs to evolve to a bigger roadway. So that's why that study's in there, and that's why it sounded, some people say, wait a minute, this development would need to widen 74 for such a long distance? No, that's part of the conversations. What would somebody need to do to the roadway to make it to acceptable level of service, regardless if this development even came on board?
Right. Anybody got anything? Anything else, Ted?
So the Fauché Road, if you have to widen that, does the elevation of that raise as well?
No, they would just probably add additional width. If it's 18, you need a 20, probably a foot on each side, or split the difference to go to the other. We have to make sure that there's existing right of way, but you would just, existing pavement, and you're adding onto it.
Yeah, and then the subject, 2 more
To the
questions.
sides, I'm sorry. You would add on to the sides to get the width.
Yeah, understood. The subject property we're talking about, it's in a AE flood zone?
Yes,
right?
sir.
And
It's in
it-
an AE flood zone, base flood is 13, and there's existing elevations between 9.3 and 12.1.
And then it's gonna be raised to like an X as they develop it? When they develop it, bring it into an X zone?
When they develop this, the ordinance requires for new lots, new projects, the whole fill ordinance we're familiar with, their finished floor elevation has to be 2 foot above base flood elevation. It can't place any more, I believe it's 3 feet of fill on the land, there's a cap. And then the roads, I believe, can't be any less than 1 foot below base elevation. So this project will be required to build up relative to the higher base foot elevation.
Right.
So,
So with a grade of 12, you're looking at, and a minimum
13.
grade elevation of 13, you're looking at 3 feet of fill. In
Yeah, I
the
mean,
lower areas where the elevation.
That
is
being
8,
said, I mean, there will be a requirement that some of these houses are gonna have to be on pier beam.
Right.
I don't think there's a situation where you can build up the property to a point where you can have a slab on grade that will meet our elevation requirements,
And
just because of
within
the
the field.
elevation of the
Within the
existing
field
land.
Within the field limits.
right. And then, I thought I saw this. This is, believe me, it's not off base. The I-10 distance in that buffer zone that backs up to this proposed development. I thought I saw what that distance was, but I don't see it now.
It's probably a couple hundred feet.
1,225 feet.
You see it up there?
I mean, if that's.
No, that's,
No,
that's
sorry, that's the
on the
whole
lake.
distance, yeah.
We're talking to the interstate, because it's 2-lane at that.
Mhm. You're talking about the distance from the rear of the lots in the proposed subdivision to the right-of-way?
To the interstate.
Yeah, to
I
the
know it's
right-of-way,
probably
it's
not on
probably
here.
about 200 feet, and it's probably about another 70 to 80 feet. So it's probably about between 250 and 275 feet from the rear of the lots to the travel lane of the interstate.
Okay. Okay, I have no other questions right now.
Well, what's the, anybody have,
I could have one other question.
By the way.
I'm looking at this Lynette Lane. I know that we had talked about future developments having more than one point of ingress and egress.
Yes.
I'm still only seeing one in and out because this Lynette's Lane goes nowhere. I believe the intent was for it to go to an existing road, not to a future road.
Well, the code allows if there's no other access, if there were another road, obviously they would have to tie into that, but the code only requires that they provide access to another access point so that the future something could tie to it. So what they are shown is within the code guidelines.
yeah, they're providing the connectivity, but the land next door is vacant, so there's.
Because yes, it's
nothing to-
vacant, undeveloped land.
Right.
So in the event of emergency and Fauché Road is blocked out, and this is their other point of egress, then where are they going? Through an empty field?
Yeah, like lots of other places in, yeah. Commissioners? Make a motion.
They can't build a road onto
Huh?
someone else's property.
Make a motion.
Yeah, I saw one of the staff comments was, about the drainage impact study and the offsite analysis. Is it not all the way completed yet? Or is everything finished?
No, it's done.
Okay.
The study is where it needs to be for a preliminary plat level. So imagine preliminary
Okay.
plats, no one's done hard construction plans, or you're gonna spend the time and effort to do plans unless you got a project approved. So just like everything in the past, all of our letters state the drainage study is preliminary. What they're presenting, they have a game plan of meeting your code and ordinances. It will be continued to make sure that happens, should it get approved to go through construction phase. And you can't get an approval until you show all those details and make sure you're doing. For example, you can do a drainage study now that says, I'm gonna put a massive 30-foot by 30-foot box culvert in, and then you get and it meets it in front of this planning commission, then you get the construction plans, and they decide they want to put a 36-inch pipe in. Well, that's restrictive, you're not meeting the ordinance. So it's always preliminary, but they got a game plan, and then just continue to be reviewed should this thing move along in the construction plan process. You got true construction plan details, and that's standard, that's nothing new, that's where the ordinance has always been.
Yeah, this is just to get into the permitting process. You gotta start doing all of that detail engineering, and essentially, everything they represented here, they're gonna have to comply with before they can get a permit to actually physically start doing work. And
Correct.
that's, That's quite some time in the future. It's not gonna happen right away.
4 to 6 months, 8 months, it depends how
Yeah, I was just
aggressively
questioning,
they.
it said it needed to be studied in greater detail. I just was making sure that it's been. fully
Yes,
vetted.
well, it's gonna be refined if there are some adjustments that must be made to the layout or the design or something like that. They will have to make any accommodations they need to move forward and meet the code. If they cannot meet the code, then they will not be able to move forward and get a permit to start construction.
Question back to staff. You talked about 74. And did you talk in terms of what if 74 widens or they do some road improvements there for El Landry and Fauché Road? I can't recall what you were mentioning earlier.
Yes, I was mentioning that I believe the traffic consultant's requirement is that if the existing level service is worse than what the parish considers unacceptable, which I believe it's a D, what would you have to do to make it better? Their response was to make it acceptable, someone would need to make a lane in each direction and add that center left turn lane, different, Highway 73 until in front of Bluff Elementary.
Yeah.
That type of arrangement is what you would need to do for the parish to make, to meet the acceptable levels of service. But that was not, there's two different criteria. That's one criteria, what you would need to do. Now, for this project to offset its impact, it's one of those things, 74 has so much traffic, even if you add these 80 trips on it, they're not dropping it at a level of service to where you're saying you have to add a left turn lane in this project, right turn lane for this project, you have to do something to offset your impact. This is more a situation where the level of service is low in existing, then improvement would be needed to make it acceptable for the parish.
Okay.
With that said, I think that there are two things that the commission should consider as a condition of approval. And one of them, if one of you want to make the motion, you have to widen Fauché to a minimum of 20 feet all the way to Highway 74. And the other one is you have to construct a two-way left lane on left turn lane on Highway 74 that meets DOT guidelines for the intersection with Fauché.
Correct.
I think those two are, the minimum requirements that we have to, although the 20-foot issue is a code requirement,
Yes.
I think that it behooves the commission to impose that as a condition of approval. So with that, I float that as a.
I've got a question for Eric. The 20-foot widening would be, I think that was in front of Windermere, we made that requirement? Was that Windermere
Yes, there was
subdivision?
one and in Cannon Road
Cannon Road is the one.
for
I thought
Windermere,
that
yes.
was Windermere, huh? Is that not
No.
Windermere?
Yes.
It was
Okay.
Cannon, right?
Yeah, it was Cannon,
Cannon Road?
in Windermere, yeah, from
So what they
Roddy
did
to
was they went and
44.
Put a foot of asphalt on either side of the existing.
Yeah, they milled it and did it. The thing about Fauché is that it's concrete in some sections.
Okay.
So that would require some adjustment.
That's gonna be a little bit different.
That's gonna be a
Yes.
little bit different.
But that's a construction problem that we have the right to impose on the developer.
Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm
Yes.
just asking if that's similar to the same.
Mhm. Yes,
And what is the maintenance bond requirements on that, the timing,
it's 18 month.
18 months?
Same as everything else. Commissioners, can someone take action?
So we're saying, for an approval, you'd have to widen.
It's
20-foot.
my opinion that those two things that I mentioned would be the very minimum requirement for approval.
Right.
If you choose to make that motion to approve, with those two conditions of approval.
I think that's, at a minimum, those two would be.
So you're making a motion?
required.
Commissioner Miller, you making a motion?
I'm writing my
No,
thoughts.
okay, you're writing it, okay.
Writing my thoughts down.
I make a motion on the condition that we approve that Fauché Road is widened to the parish ordinance 20 feet from the beginning of Gateway subdivision, the proposed, all the way to 74. And that we construct a two-way left turn lane that meets DOT's guidelines.
Do we have a second?
How long? From Chester Road? That was, Ms. Murphy's, from Chester Road all the way
No.
to?
For Fauché, just
Fauché
that
was-
meets the,
That's the 20-foot.
No,
Right.
no, the center line on 74 would be guidelines on Fauché Road. How long DOTD says determines it's gotta be.
Okay.
Do you have a second?
20-foot widening as per existing.
Does that cover El Landry too? That
If you don't, if you guys wouldn't mind, I would like to get Ms. Rebecca up here to specify exactly as far as the subdivision, what we're looking at as far as the length of it, so you can be very clear in
For
your,
the center, for the left turn lane?
for the center left turn lane,
Yeah.
yes.
If she has that, that'd be perfect. We could add it to the condition.
I might not have the exact storage that's necessary at this time.
DOT details.
Well, let me ask a question, Eric. Generally speaking, you know, a condition of approval like that, the commission has usually used language that meets the DOTD, you know, guidelines and parish requirements. And, you know, your traffic folks are the experts. They're gonna work out that distance along with DOTD. So I feel more comfortable with that than specifying a distance here that's gonna have to come back and amend it because we're off a foot.
Yes, and I mean, that's
So-
fine. The only thing I was thinking about is it looking at the intersection of Fauché, between the intersection of Fauché and El Landry, or was it beyond, because it's about 185 feet between the intersections of those two roads.
Right.
If that is the distance that we're talking about, we could say between, you know, the intersection of 74 with Fauché and El Landry, or if it goes beyond that, if that's the standard, that's what I'm trying to, I just think it would be good to have some kind of general idea of the scope of what we're looking at.
Okay, so, all right, so I think the record speaks to that Landry, it would be as part of the criteria. But I think that if the condition is amended to simply state that it's not only the DOTD guidelines, but the parish requirements.
Okay, yeah.
then it's up to the developer, the engineer, and the parish's engineer to hammer out those details.
That's, yeah,
And that's part of the
that's
permitting
the
process.
wishes, yes, that's fine.
So the question to you is, you okay amending the condition that way?
Yes.
Okay.
But
So,
to Mr. Sherrill's
for
point-
the records, for the benefit of the record, the condition number 2 would be, at the end of DOTD guidelines, we'd simply add, and parish standards. The person calling the second, you're comfortable with that?
We're gonna have to say that up.
Okay.
You calling us?
So the second condition of approval would be amended to read two-way left turn lane that meets DOTD guidelines and parish requirements.
Is the parish requirements to what Mr. Sherrill was speaking earlier, that this does not improve to the level of service of D that is required?
Yeah, that would be the parish traffic engineer's yeah, so she gets to set that distance.
Just due to the proximity of El Landry with Fauché Road, anything that you do at Fauché is gonna, I guess, bleed into El Landry. So it would likely affect both roadways, but it might not be necessary to go all the way to Chester DS
Right, and.
for this development.
And the record is clear on what you've stated, so that's all part of the record, so. So again, are we comfortable with the amended second condition of approval? You seconded, right?
I did
No.
not.
You seconded.
So this is preliminary though, so.
We don't get another bite at this.
No, we don't get another bite at
No.
it. This, we're turning it over to staff.
Correct.
I think we need to restate the full motion, because I'm a little confused
Okay.
right now.
I make a motion to approve on the conditions that Fauché Road is widened to the minimum 20 feet, which is parish requirement, parish ordinance, from the proposed subdivision site 274. Second is that a two-way left turn lane is constructed on Highway 74 to meet DOTD guidelines and parish requirements.
Good? Council, okay? Now, do we have a second?
I still have a question.
It doesn't, even the turn lane, still doesn't bring it up to the service level D that is required for the parish for approval.
You
Hold on.
cannot get the D. There's no way to get the D.
So.
Then
Go
it
ahead.
doesn't work.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I guess I want to continue to make a comment. This area of 74 with this, the roadway, forget about this development, the amount of traffic coming in. Your study takes into account volumes of cars and such, but I'll be honest with you, that area, I have a concern with safety. And we're not, these studies aren't addressing safety. Yes, it's allowing for the number of cars or potential cars that these, 77 lots, what might bring. But what's already there, there's future development we approved a while back on 74 across the interstate. So,
We did perform a crash analysis for the study. We reviewed 3 years of crashes in this vicinity. There were 47 crashes, 2 were fatal, 1 was severe, and 3 were moderate, and the rest were just property damage only.
okay, so thanks for bringing that up. I guess I want to,
Well, look, if you guys are discussing this, somebody makes a motion, if you guys are not comfortable providing a second, then it's gonna die for lack of a second. You know what I mean? If you're not comfortable, if no one of you is comfortable providing a second, then the motion is gonna die for lack of a second.
And I just want to make it clear, there's no requirement for the developer to improve the traffic to level D, okay? Now, they are required that the traffic impact be de minimis, okay? And so, with that in mind, I hope that, and based on the traffic report, the impact is relatively minor. So, I guess we're just gonna have to, I need to know whether we have a second or not, so we can move on.
I don't have a second.
Nick, are you willing to second it? All right,
I'll second it, with the 20-foot widening in its existing condition. So it has to be, if it's concrete now, it stays concrete.
oh, no, yes,
Otherwise-
that's just the way, that's the way it is, yeah.
And there's no improvements to El Landry, correct? It's just on 74? And a two-way,
Yeah. 74.
two-way left turn lane on 74, per DOTD requirements and parish requirements. Okay, I'll second your motion.
All right. All in favor? I guess we use the voting. All in favor?
Machine's ready?
Oh. Okay, it's ready.
Wade's absent.
No, Wade's absent.
Are you
And-
and Wade's
and-
chair?
Monitor issues.
Oh, yeah, we're having some monitor issues, yeah. All right. How about roll call?
That's fine.
Yay?
Yay.
Well, we're gonna, you know,
Yeah.
and these improvements are done prior to construction?
Yes, that's all part of the project, have
Just
to be
making
done,
sure.
yeah.
Okay.
You have a yay?
Yeah.
Nay.
Okay, so we have 3 yeas and 2 nays. Motion passes. That's my agenda. I'll do that agenda.
What's next? Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn, so moved. All right, we'll take a break, come back for our zoning commission.